meeting, just so that anyone who's not here can get a recording and just see what we talk about. But it is a joy to see all of you here today. I wish we were all in person. But Amanda and I want to sincerely thank you from the bottom of our hearts just for being here to chat with us. We have about an hour on the clock. And so we want to talk through just kind of what's going on with confirmation right now, any new information that we have, and share our heart and our plans for what spring 2021 is going to look like, just with the information that we have. And then would love just to open up the conversation to have some brainstorming and just share some ideas with y'all. So Amanda and I will just kick things off with a quick prayer, but as a reminder too, just before we pray and get into some deets, being part of this meeting does not mean that you're committing to lead confirmation for spring 2021. We know everyone has different schedules and life is just crazy. And so we just want to meet with y'all and talk about this stuff because we value your opinion and because many of you have been leading confirmation since before I was even on staff. And so as we think and pray about what's best for our students and families in this season, we just know that we can't do it without the incredible resource of y'all and who you are. So thank you again for being here. Amanda's going to kick us off with a prayer and then we'll get rolling.
Yes. All right. Dear God, thank you so much for another Zoom meeting. We're so grateful for technology, and I'm just especially grateful today for each person on this call. I just pray that you are with us today as we discuss confirmation, and I pray that you remain our focus in the midst of unprecedented times. I just pray that we continue to think of the students and what's best for them in your eyes, God, because ultimately we're all here because we care about leading students closer to you. So Lord, just be with us in this time. And again, thank you for these amazing leaders. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. So again, so good to see y'all. A few people are still kind of logging on, but want to invite y'all into the problem that we have. It's no secret that we are in the middle of a global pandemic. If anyone was like, what? I'd be laughing. But we're in the middle of this pandemic, and so we had to make the strategic decision to move the confirmation program from the fall to the spring. And why we did that was because we want to give our students and families the best possible chance to meet in person to do confirmation, because as those of you who have led confirmation with us before know, Alpha, the curriculum that we use and that we're still going to be using for confirmation going forward, just functions a lot better in person. Also, the relationship building aspect of confirmation that is just key to the success of the program and to the success of the faith conversations that we have in confirmation just functions better in person. And with where we're at the church right now, it is not going to be possible to meet in person for confirmation this fall. So we were told that back in the end of July. We were given the official word that we would not be able to be in person and confirmation would have to be either completely virtual or start virtual, and we'd see. And so we wanted to move it and see if we could start in person, and we think we have the best chance to do that in January. Now, again, this is our best bet. We don't actually know that we are going to be able to do that. It's all circumstantial and based on how the situation with COVID progresses and what the church's stance is going to be going forward. Unfortunately, I don't have that full information. But as time goes on, we hopefully will be able to figure out exactly what it's going to look like in 2021. And we'll be able to get that information to y'all and to any other potential leaders as we get closer. I'm pushing for a decision to be made by the end of October, beginning of November. But again, all of that is just based on how things are progressing with the virus. So we're just being flexible and are having hands open and are being prayerful just that the Lord will give us his will for confirmation. So Currently, we are working on an in-person option, which is our goal and our desire is to have it fully in person. We're working on a virtual option for confirmation and a hybrid plan for confirmation. This will be for the current 8th graders and high schoolers who would normally be going through confirmation in the fall. But since things are strange this year, we're going to be giving people the option to defer to do confirmation in fall 2021 as we would regularly do it, if they don't want to participate in a potentially virtual or hybrid program in the spring. So Amanda is going to talk through the in-person, hybrid, and virtual plans for y'all right now, and then we will open up the discussion just to go through some questions and to get some of your feedback on these plans. So Amanda, take it away.
Yes. So like Wes said, we basically have 3 options. Like most people these days, you have lots of options for everything. So ideally, we would do what we did last year, where we're in the lodge from 8:45 to 9:45 in the morning. Obviously, we'd be spread out, and even outside of the summit, we would go and have to use some of those rooms throughout the lodge, which will be easier because there's not going to be other programming happening at that time, most likely. So that's what we would do. And really the only thing that would be different is obviously we would have masks. And if you were in a room other than the summit, you as a leader would be having to facilitate just the video as well, which I know is maybe not so stressful for some and very stressful for others, having to navigate some technology, but we would help you with that because we're going to still do alpha, like Wes said, which is all video. So that would be ideally what happens is everyone's in person wearing a mask, socially distanced to the best of our ability. And then plan B would be a hybrid. So we do all of that. Plus we have a virtual option. So Wes and I hosting some kind of Zoom call, like simultaneously where we're live streaming, like we'll see what that looks like depending on if there's people who would rather have that than be in person. If someone would rather go ahead and do it now and Zoom versus waiting for fall 2021. So that's the hybrid. And then plan C is obviously just completely virtual. And yeah, so we'll just see, I'm looking at my notes. There's adult alpha, is doing this during the fall. So they could give us feedback on what that would look like, doing alpha via Zoom or whatever platform works best. So yeah, those are the 3 options. And again, plan A is obviously what we're hoping for, but just so y'all know what you're potentially signing up for, those are the options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Amanda. I appreciate you running through that. So a few quick things before we get into actually having a conversation about this with y'all. We are really, really expectant just that the Lord is still going to do some big things in confirmation through Alpha. And even though we can't really determine exactly right now how class is going to be structured, and we may not be able to implement exact changes based on your feedback from last year, we want to know in particular out of this conversation with y'all what the wins were from last year and how we can bring those wins from confirmation this previous year into a model that we don't really fully know what it's going to look like exactly in spring 2021. So we just would love to open up the floor for y'all to share the wins that you had in confirmation, how it went, and how you could see those wins from last year applying directly into a COVID model, whether it's in-person, hybrid, or completely virtually. So why don't we, for the purpose of this conversation, just like try to stay muted unless we're the ones talking. And I just will, if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand and I'll call on you just so that we aren't talking over one another. But so what are some wins and how could you see those wins being applied to a confirmation spring 2021? Shannon, yes, go ahead.
I was trying to figure out how you can raise your hand on one of the.
She thought on the app you could raise your hand.
Oh,
it makes sense. And he goes, I think you just physically have to raise your hand.
I think you raise your hand and Wes will see it.
Okay, stop.
Yes, okay.
Stop. Okay, so here was just my thought process. I loved, obviously, Alpha and the fact that it was the heavy teaching was done up front. And then it's the small group aspect of being able to draw that out of the kids. What if it worked and where some groups could actually do it at some people's homes or do it at different times so that it was never full there, or maybe, you know, 5 of us met on a Wednesday night and was able to take over the whole room. And then some people said, I can do it at my house. And that was convenient for a group of people, just where it's not trying to do everybody at the exact same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that that's a really good point of feedback, Shannon. That is something that we have considered just in particular for other programming for student ministry. The problem that we're working through with that is just in terms of liability. If we're having a program that is sponsored and put on by the church that's as large as this one is, in light of the pandemic that we're in, just if there were to be like a home that we were inviting people into and someone happened to be infected, or like there was some sort of spread, we just would have to figure out liability wise, like how we would work through that. But it is an option, and honestly is something that we could consider thinking about for confirmation, especially if we aren't able to all be together in one group. But yeah, that's really good feedback. Anyone else, like feedback, thoughts, wins, or Shannon, do you have more to add? Okay, Ruth Ann's raising her hand, and then we'll go to Mary Altman next. Ruth Ann, I think you're on mute.
My feeling is that it should be done at the church because of liability. And we have a freshman at UGA, and I'm hearing all these universities, and they're really worried about liability if someone gets the virus. And I think that would be something that Rich and the other pastors would be concerned about. Mm-hmm. But I also think that we've got the summit, we've got the canyon, we've got lots of rooms where, and technology would allow to have a screen where Alpha is being presented in all the various locations. You have your discussion and you can have the social distancing and all. I just feel virtual, there won't be the bonding. There won't be that inner conversation between the kids, which is so important and which really may change someone's mind or give them a different perspective. So they really do feel that Jesus is the one that they want to choose and the life that they want to lead. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I think that's great feedback. And again, like a lot of this is going to be dependent on what the church policy is when we get closer. So that's just something that Amanda and I will keep y'all updated on. As of right now, though, the goal is to have it at church. But if for some reason something shifts, then we're just trying to be creative and be on our toes, you know? And luckily, none of this is a surprise to God. So I get tired of saying that. I feel like I say that all the time, just in the pandemic. But I just am holding on to that truth and know that if we're shooting for that in-person bond, and that's our goal, that we're going to find a way to make it work. So Mary, you had your hand raised next.
I was going to say, you know, as a first-time leader last year, I loved having that senior in the group, mm-hmm. because in my case, he was so good at pulling comments out of the younger 8th graders. So I love that. So I hope we can continue to do that.
Yeah, we would love to have high schoolers involved in all stages of the game if possible. So something that we are going to be working on with the rest of student ministry going forward is just how to do that and continue doing that well. Because I think that it ended up adding a lot to the program this past year. Yes, John, you're raising your hand next.
Yeah, so I agree with that. We had a junior in our group, and he made all the difference. His commentary and connection really brought us all together. So we also just dropped our daughter off at college, and one of the things that you can learn from these universities is they're trying to be real creative on the fly as well. And one of the things that William and Mary's doing is they're setting up outside tents for outside classroom experiences and activities. So I don't know if there's a way for us to set up some sort of tent environment around the church because it's so important that there is some form of face-to-face, in-person interaction. One of the things that we noticed, and I'm sure you all did last year, was as the session moved forward and the topics got deeper and tougher, the group learned to trust each other. And as they trusted each other through this in-person interaction, they opened up more. And then it led to that faith statement that is the culmination of going as deep as you can get. So I just don't think we can recreate that depth in a Zoom format. I just think we need to be creative with how we move forward, and maybe an outdoor classroom environment's a way to do it.
Yeah, that's a really good thought. I mean, and for Sunday night programming for student ministry as a whole, we are doing outdoor small groups on Sunday nights just at the church, but in different spaces, socially distant and with groups of 10 or less, including leaders. So we definitely are working on that infrastructure just in our regular programming. So maybe there's a way we could make that work in a communal sense just for confirmation. But getting ideas like that is key because we have the time, thankfully, now to do that legwork and make it ready for January. Yeah, Ross. I think you're on mute, Ross.
Yep, that's it. So I think, I mean, in terms of wins, I mean, I think the win of just having Alpha continues to be a win. I remember before we had Alpha and just the change that, like, just the conversations are a lot more directed. So I think that continues to be a win. I think, kind of to echo John a little bit, you know, definitely like when the group has more trust and there's more relationships there, even like kid to kid, like the difference in the conversations and the engagement levels, I mean, it's night and day. So I would just ask for anything we can do, maybe even prior to confirmation kicking off, to create like some sort of like introduction where it doesn't even have to be a class. It's just getting together. Maybe it's playing a game or something to get people comfortable. Because I think, to me, the biggest struggle in confirmation has been, you know, it's you know, short amount of time. You know, a lot of it's dominated by the video. That the group chat, this discussion time we do have is, you know, it can take kids a while to get comfortable in sharing. So I think anything to like expand on that relationship building aspect would be a huge win.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. And that, Mary Altman, you sent me an email with some feedback a couple weeks ago talking about just icebreakers in general and how that was good when we had them last year. And even just like, regardless of like doing something social before confirmation, even just like within the class flow itself, having an icebreaker and time for that in the beginning, like it just helps kids automatically go ahead and start to open up. But doing something beforehand, I think, is definitely a great idea, Ross. And I think that that's something that we've talked about year after year and have never really made happen. But I think that it definitely is possible this year, especially if groups are smaller, because in order to spread out and keep socially distant, we probably are likely going to have to do that, which means we'd need more leaders and more spaces. But if we have these even smaller groups, it could be a lot easier to do something beforehand where we can socialize and just help leaders get to know kids and vice versa, just to help conversations start off well. Any other thoughts, wins? Hands? Yeah, Kennard.
I echo everybody else's comments, and I think they were all great, and I think we all kind of agree with them. I am part of a cohort where we have a large Zoom group, and then we break up into small groups, and that has worked, and I think it could work here, but I think, as everyone else has said, the strength of Alpha, while the videos are funny, and I think those are very engaging, it's the table time that really makes it, and the small group where you can actually open up in person, so much so that I know it's church policy and it's not your decision, but I would take option 3 off the table. I mean, I would say if you can't do 1 or 2, I would not have confirmation in the spring if it's only going to be all virtual.
Mm-hmm.
I would just push it back to the fall of 2021 rather than try and do something in 2020. And that's just my vote, okay? But I think that the in-person time is just so important.
Yeah. No, I completely echo that and agree, Kennard. We can give that a round of applause. Yes, there you can applaud in Zoom, I guess, with an emoji. So that definitely is our heart, and that definitely is our desire. There's a lot of logistics, like we said, that we're just going to have to think and pray through. But I feel pretty confident that we are going to be able to find a way to do option A or B. Honestly, I'm thinking more that option B is probably going to be the most likely scenario, just as of right now. But again, everything is flexible. So we just still have to see. Yeah, Kennard.
The only follow-up on option B is I think that confirmation, the way you present, is a little bit different from schooling. Okay, where in schooling people are mandatory; they have to go there, and so because we want to honor people and concern, we give them an option. Do you want to do virtual or do you want to be in person?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that that's a good approach for confirmation. I mean, particularly if you can say, hey, if you feel uncomfortable with however we decide to do it, you can defer it completely until next year or whatever. I think that if you decide that you want to do it in part in person, don't try and make some of the students get to do it virtual and some have to do it in person, because that's going to be really hard for the teachers. It's going to be really, it's going to be not only technically tough, it's going to be logistically tough. I think if we decide to go forward, you say, this is how we're doing it, okay? We prayed about it, we studied it, we think this is a good way to do it, this is an approach way to do it. If you don't like it or if you feel uncomfortable, we totally get that. Wait until, the fall or the next time we do it, okay? Mm-hmm. But this is how we're doing it. Some people don't get to do A and some people don't do B. I don't want to lead a table with 3 people are on a video screen and 2 people are live.
Oh yeah, no, I think that is a really good point, Kennard. And also too, if it wasn't clear earlier, I don't think that we would be in a situation where it would be that you would be at a table with like 3 kids and then some kids would be virtual. If for some reason you had students at your table who were infected with COVID, we would handle them going through the content virtually for like in our makeup class process. What Amanda and I were talking about with hybrid is just that one of us or a leader who wanted to lead virtually just would handle that with the students who wanted to be virtual but didn't want to defer. But again, also like, I think that there is wisdom in what you're saying as well. So we're going to take all of that into consideration and bring it back to church leadership and see kind of what their directives are for us out of that. But really good feedback. Is there anyone else with just some wins or thoughts that you'd like to share?
Hey, Wes, this is Robert. In the in-person option, has the church provided you with guidance on protocols for temperature checks and I guess parent signatures on, have they had anybody sick in their home in the last 2 weeks? And this really hits home with me in particular because I was exposed 2 weeks ago due to a family that really did not adhere to protocols. Fortunately for me, it was a good situation where it came out negative, but it was a situation where the family really did not adhere to the protocols, and even though we had done the necessary screening, we were potentially exposing 15 kids. So just wanted to get your thoughts or anything from the church as to protocols of being able to screen people before we came into that environment.
Yeah, so we are still working on what that is going to look like exactly with a program on this scale. But what I can say, and Amanda or even Mary Altman, just our incredible HR rep, feel free to jump in. What we are doing as a church staff right now is anytime we come in the building, we have to go through and have our temperature checked, and we have to pass a temperature check before we're able to go in and work or do anything inside the church. And we have to wear a mask at all times. And so part of how we mitigate the risk or will mitigate the risk with confirmation is, unfortunately, everyone will be required to wear a mask at all times. We are going to be very strict about that. And it's just the trade-off that we have to take in order to allow people to be in person. But when it comes to temperature checks and all of that, we're still figuring out what exactly that will look like. But it is something that we're cognizant of. There also is an adjusted waiver form that all participants will have to sign before they're able to do confirmation. And we are going to send home some very strong communication about what our expectations are for participants when it comes to whether or not they've been exposed or whether they've had symptoms or anything like that. So, I mean, we're still a bit in the weeds with figuring that out, but it is something that we're taking really seriously. Just because we not only care about the health of our students, we care about your health, and y'all being safe is very, very important to us. So does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. Anything to add, Amanda or Mary? Just, okay. Sorry to
Wes,
put you on the spot.
Beth, I have an idea.
Yeah.
So, I agree and echo what everybody said, but as I was thinking about coming to this meeting and praying about it, the thing that kind of kept coming to my mind is that kids are very nervous and frustrated right now about school and their sports and their friends and everything. But what if we just relied on God to turn this upside down? And instead of making it so focused on COVID, what if we pretended like we were in the Soviet Union or in China and we had to meet secretly, or how hard it is to come together to hear about Jesus, and really make this not like graduation last year, which was a sad time for all the students, but make these kids feel like they are in the most special class ever, because they get to pretend like they're somewhere that it's very difficult to get into this situation.
Yeah, Beth, I think that is an incredible thought. And I think that just given the situation that we're in, and the fact that a lot of what we're doing is not determined by me, it's determined by church leadership. I think that we just kind of have to keep our hands open, like you're saying, and hopefully make this situation just as positive and as uplifting as possible, because everyone is losing things. Like, everyone is going through that sense of uncertainty right now. And so we have an incredible opportunity to share the love of Christ with students and to give them a program that can be a ray of light in a season that doesn't make sense, and I think that is very much how the underground church feels. So yeah, we're fighting it back. It's going to be great. Sorry, Kirsten, you had your hand raised as well.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. If I can just add to what you were saying, and it's a little contradictory to what everybody else has said, so apologize, because I do agree that the in-person is so valuable and so important for the kids if we can get it. But I don't think that not having that is a reason for us to delay, for the very reason you just said, because I think it is so important that the kids, when they're going through kind of this 8th grade to 9th grade transition, have this faith building experience, however we can deliver it. And I feel like, God will take over and build the bonds regardless of whatever circumstances we're under, because we don't know how long we're going to be dealing with COVID. I mean, we may still next fall still be in the same circumstances. We don't know, but either way, we need to keep on one way or another. And I hope that regardless, we're able to continue kind of this programming, because I do think it's life-changing for these kids at this moment in time when they need it so much, and have so many pressures that they're dealing with. And I really wouldn't want to delay it much longer if we could.
Oh, exactly. And that's why, even though we had to push to the spring, we are moving forward just as strongly as we can. And that's why we wanted to even have this conversation with y'all today, just because y'all have been such an incredible part of this program, and you care about these kids so deeply. And we don't want this to be another thing that gets taken away. and ultimately we know that God is in control and that he's sovereign, and we want to capitalize on this year to point kids toward that, you know. So we're going to do everything we can to move it forward.
Hey, Wes, you had mentioned that you guys are going to be starting up programming, the informal programming in person. When is that going to start?
So we are starting our Sunday night breakout groups on September 13th. It is going to be just kind of like a small group environment, which is similar to confirmation, but completely outside, and is on honestly like a smaller scale than the confirmation program. But that'll be for students that want to participate on Sunday nights. And if anyone on this call, I know Ross and Mary already participate and lead on Sunday nights. But if y'all want an opportunity to engage with students this fall, you're more than welcome to talk to Amanda and I about that, because we still do need some leaders for that programming. It is different than confirmation, and a little bit, it's just structured differently. And yeah, that's the.
I guess the reason I asked is, how do we make the decision to create an informal time together as important and not find a way to create that opportunity for confirmation? I would look for some consistency there, because I don't know what message it sends. I just bring that up as a thought.
Yeah. So are you saying, like, why did we make the decision to do Sunday night programming but not to do confirmation in the fall?
Well, or as we find deeper ways to want to bring them together, it sounds like you guys have really searched your souls to get them together for that more informal time. Mm-hmm. And I'm just hoping that we're trying to dig as deep to bring them together for the confirmation piece, because we know the importance of it, and bring consistency among the two. I just don't see how you could do one and not allow the other.
Yeah. That's a really great question. Yeah, that's a great question. So with our decision making in moving confirmation but still having Sunday night programming, the decision to move confirmation was made about a month before we made that decision. But also too, even if we hadn't made the decision to move confirmation, it just wouldn't have worked in the same way because of the scale of the confirmation program, and with the technology needs that we have, since we still are not allowed to meet inside the church, and probably will not be for the foreseeable future, at least in what I've been told. But when it comes to the informal gathering as a piece of confirmation, I think in the past we've kind of relied on Sunday nights to be that deeper dive for students that want to have more community. As you well know, the vast majority of the kids that come through confirmation do not participate in church outside of confirmation, or nominally go to church. We also pull a lot of students that don't actually go to Peachtree, but who come for our confirmation program. And so I do think that that is a mistake that we've made in the past, of just allowing Sunday nights to be the sole deep relational tie outside of confirmation in the morning. And I'll admit to you that I think part of why it's been that way has just been because of the amount of work that goes into pulling that program off, and the hours that there just aren't enough hours in the day to add one more thing typically. But I think that this year we have a really great opportunity to get something like that in motion, just with the flexibility that we have. And I think that it's good feedback to know that Sunday nights isn't enough when it comes to creating those opportunities for students. So any other thoughts, questions, concerns? Does that answer your question, John? Or do you have any follow-up on that?
I think it's a good answer. I'm looking for consistency on how we justify one and not the other. But I guess the scale is a good comeback. But I'm searching deep for how we can make it work, and at least some formal in person. It's just so important for these kids, and we got to remember the topic we're talking about here is confirming your faith, and it just, I don't know, just doing it virtually just doesn't have that same feel. I really kind of agree with Kennard that if we can't do it right, let's just push it forward. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing, and I hope I answered your question. So anything else?
Wes, this is Robert. I'll turn the tables. So for you and Amanda, in the last few months, you've had to pivot quite a deal in the delivery of student ministry. So what have you learned that may help us within confirmation to engage with these kids in this environment? What things have you found beneficial over the last couple of months as you've kind of started to engage and develop content in a new way?
Yeah, Amanda, you want to take a crack at that first?
I knew you were going to tell me to go first. You always do that. No, I mean, I think we've learned a lot, but I think like for this time specifically, kids are just really hungry to see us, even if it is through Zoom. Like we used to do weekly Zoom calls with them, and they were way more fun than Wes and I thought they were going to be, because the kids are just silly and just like so excited to do something that wasn't virtual math or virtual science. Like it was just fun for them to talk. And then, yeah, I mean, really as of the last few weeks is when we've been slowly integrating really small in-person gatherings. So I think a big thing we've learned just as a ministry is to just be gracious to ourselves and to each other, because it's nobody's fault that this is happening, and that everyone's just as confused as we are. And it's been a lot of trial and error. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just been really challenging in a good way to kind of like turn our ideas of ministry on our head. And I know for me being new, it's been interesting just because I don't really have any allegiance, for lack of a better term. I don't really have an allegiance to some of the traditions of Peachtree. So with summer specifically, it was kind of interesting because I was new, but summer very quickly became new for everybody. So I think that was a cool thing for me, is just to be able to hop in and say like, hey, I know you always do this, but what if you just did this instead? Just because it was just easier for me to get out of the box of like, we always do confirmation like this, so we don't know how to make it COVID safe. And it's just like, well, I only have 1 year of doing confirmation, so it's probably easier for me to think of it other ways. But I've been very thankful that we're on a team and that I'm not off on my own at some church trying to figure this out, and that we have the support of all of y'all too. So
Totally. And
take it away, Wesley.
yeah, no, that's great, Amanda. Thank you. And what I'd add, just going off of what you said, is I think for all of us, and y'all included as confirmation leaders, what is helping students the most is just to know that they are cared for, even if it's in small ways. Even if it's just showing up in someone's driveway with like a saran wrapped cupcake so that you don't have to physically touch it with your skin. Like just little things like that, just to show people that you care and love them, go a really long way. I know a number of you wrote emails to your confirmation tables from this past year, and those were really well received. And I think that the kids felt very connected just because of those small touches. But also too, I think the biggest thing that I would say to y'all that we are having to remind ourselves of every day is just to have grace for yourself, like Amanda's saying, because I think in times of crisis in particular, it's very easy to feel like everything is on you and you aren't doing enough. It is always weird to me that I get to the end of the work week and feel so exhausted and like I've been working like crazy, and I'm like, well, I'm not even seeing like huge groups of students. I might have met with like 10 kids, but it was all one-on-one, outside with a mask on. But I think that like for y'all in particular, I'd say if you are going to lead with us going into spring, just think of ways you can show the kids and parents that you care and also have grace for yourself. Because I think people really do have grace for the flexibility and the creativity that we're having to employ. So. Yeah. Thank you for asking. Well, guys, if anyone else has any further feedback or thoughts, now would be the time to share. If not, we'll go ahead and close in prayer, and I will send an email, a copy of this video from the Zoom call tomorrow, as well as specific questions that we kind of talk through live. And if you want to look at those questions and just provide some further feedback in writing, you're more than welcome to. We welcome all of your thoughts. And oh yes, Shannon.
I was just going to say at this point, it's just interesting to hear where you guys are and your thought process. Once you get closer and you have a game plan, then I think it would be a great time for us to come in and go, well, what if we did this? Or what if we did that? It's kind of hard to do that at this stage.
Yeah.
But thank you for taking the time to kind of share with us where you guys feel like it's the direction that we're gonna go. And I'm sure all of us would love to help it to be successful and help come up with other ways. Like I love what Ross said of figuring out a way to get together with them beforehand so there's some kind of connection. I mean, there's lots of things like that we could bounce ideas around to make something that's probably going to be a little different, go a little smoother. But thanks for taking this time to brief us on where we are.
Oh my gosh, of course. And thank you all for taking this time. And I hope that you know that anything that y'all need, just in particular in this season, Amanda and I want to be there for you, to be praying and listening and chatting and supporting just in whatever ways we can, because this is a hard time for all of us, but it is exciting just to be able to share with y'all where we're at and to look expectantly toward what confirmation will be this year. So I think that's a great idea to circle back as we have a better idea of what things will actually look like.
Wes, we missed the most on Sunday mornings going up and high-fiving you and saying go dogs. So
yes,
can't wait till those times can come back and bring us together for our morning gatherings.
Yes, I have a recurring nightmare about Georgia football that they won't let me in the stadium, which feels all too real. I've woken up screaming several nights. I know that sounds like I'm making a joke. I'm really not. That's how sad my life is sometimes. Focus on the important things. So, all right, y'all. Well, I would love if, oh, hey, Bob, you're just signing on and we're about to sign off. I'm so sorry. I would love if we could have one of y'all close us in prayer. And then just if you have any other feedback, please send it our way. And hopefully, by the time we have a better handle on what confirmation will look like, we could meet in person at a park and do something like that. I think that'd be super fun. So any leader, would you like to close us in prayer? Okay, Mary, thank you so much.
Yeah, happy to. Hey guys. Okay. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you so much for today and for the ability to meet virtually together, Lord, and to also work and follow the leadership of Amanda and Wes as they try and navigate such a unique season. Lord, I pray that our words and thoughts can impact them positively to create a larger plan for these students. I pray specifically for those students right now that your gracious, loving hand is just on them and leading them in the path that is to your glory, and that we can help guide them along the way as well, Lord. For all of those leaders that aren't with us, pray blessings and health for them as well. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank y'all so much. It was such a joy to be with you, and hopefully we'll see you soon. Have a great Sunday. Go Dogs.
Thanks, Wes.
Thank y'all. Bye.